The tragic death of Whitney Hustler at the hands of her ex-boyfriend's family in Street Paris, Ohio, is a heart-wrenching story marked by obsession, control, and a custody battle that spiraled into violence. Whitney, a young mother, became entangled in a tumultuous relationship with Randy Ryder and his parents, Valerie and Rodney. As their custody dispute over Whitney's daughter intensified, tensions escalated dramatically. On a fateful morning in September 2020, a heated argument erupted between Whitney and Valerie, culminating in a horrifying act of violence. Valerie, consumed by rage and desperation to maintain control over Whitney and her granddaughter, resorted to an unspeakable crime. The brutal nature of this incident sent shockwaves through the local community, prompting discussions about the hidden dangers that often accompany domestic disputes and the chilling impact of obsession. Whitney's death served as a grim reminder of how toxic family dynamics can lead to devastating outcomes. Friends and family mourned her loss, grappling with the brutal reality that a quest for control had cost a young mother her life. This tragedy underscores the urgent need for awareness and intervention in similar situations, emphasizing the importance of recognizing warning signs before they escalate into violence. Whitney's story highlights a profound societal issue, urging communities to address the complexities of familial relationships and the consequences of unchecked obsession. Background: Whitney Hustler's life was a complicated tapestry woven with tumultuous relationships and the challenges of early motherhood. Residing in Street Paris, Ohio, Whitney faced the profound struggles of postpartum depression while navigating a contentious custody battle for her daughter, Arn, with her ex-boyfriend, Randy Ryder. Their relationship was fraught with conflicts, made even more complicated by the active involvement of Randy's parents, Valerie and Rodney Ryder, who played a significant role in caring for Arn. As Whitney grappled with mental health issues, the tensions within the Ryder household escalated, creating an emotionally charged atmosphere that exacerbated her feelings of isolation. Living under the Ryder household's roof intensified her struggle for autonomy and control over her life. Determined to regain her independence, Whitney began contemplating the possibility of moving out and pursuing legal action for child support, a decision that would ultimately prove to be both pivotal and disastrous. The dynamics between Whitney and the Ryder family grew increasingly volatile as her frustrations simmered beneath the surface. The sense of control that Valerie and Rodney exerted over Whitney became suffocating, feeding her desire to break free from their influence. This struggle for independence came to a head on September 30, 2020, when an argument erupted between Whitney and Valerie. What began as a verbal dispute quickly escalated into a deadly confrontation, underscoring the tragic consequences of unresolved conflicts within family dynamics. This harrowing incident, marked by obsession and control, reflects the darker realities of familial disputes and serves as a somber reminder of the potential for violence that can arise when communication breaks down. Whitney's tragic fate was not merely an isolated incident, but a reflection of a broader societal issue surrounding domestic conflicts and the urgent need for awareness and intervention. As friends and family mourned her loss, the community was left grappling with the unsettling truth that the pressures of love, custody, and familial ties can lead to devastating outcomes when left unchecked. The crime. On that fateful morning, the domestic tensions within the Ryder household reached a boiling point. Rodney Ryder Sr., Randy's father, was abruptly awakened by the sound of raised voices coming from the bedroom where Whitney Hustler and Valerie Ryder were embroiled in a heated argument. Hesitant yet curious, Rodney initially entered the room and bore witness to the escalating confrontation. However, instead of intervening to de-escalate the situation, he chose to leave, hoping that the argument would resolve itself. Moments later, Valerie called him back into the room, and what he witnessed was nothing short of horrific. Valerie had placed a plastic bag over Whitney's head and was wrapping it tightly with duct tape. Whitney lay unconscious, having succumbed to Valerie's sudden and violent rage. Rodney later admitted to police that in that critical moment, he did not attempt to stop his wife's actions. Instead, he stood by, passively allowing the horror to unfold. This shocking admission revealed a chilling detachment from the gravity of the situation, illustrating the extent to which the Ryders were enmeshed in their own dysfunction. In a deeply disturbing turn of events, rather than calling for help or reporting the incident, Rodney chose to assist Valerie in disposing of Whitney's lifeless body. Together, they made a series of cold and calculated decisions that culminated in one of the most heinous actions imaginable. They ultimately opted to discard Whitney's body off a cliff at Kaiser Lake. Their actions exhibited a complete disregard for human dignity and the moral implications of their choices, stripping Whitney of the respect and humanity she deserved in death. Tragically, Whitney's young daughter, Arn, unknowingly accompanied them on this grim journey, her innocent presence serving as a haunting reminder of the consequences of adult conflicts. The presence of the child amid such horror underscores the profound irresponsibility and detachment of the Ryder couple. As they drove to the lake, they failed to consider the psychological ramifications of their actions, not only for themselves, but for the young girl who would forever be marked by the traumatic loss of her mother. In the aftermath of Whitney's death, Arn was left to grapple with the incomprehensible reality of being orphaned, her world shattered by the violent actions of those she had once trusted. With both of her grandparents imprisoned and a mother gone, Arn faced a future clouded by grief and confusion. The tragedy resonated deeply within the community, sparking discussions about the darker realities of familial disputes and the insidious nature of control. As investigations unfolded and the community learned of the tragic events, it became evident that the effects of this crime would reverberate far beyond the Ryder household. Whitney's story serves as a stark reminder of the urgent need for awareness and intervention in situations where obsession and toxic familial dynamics threaten to escalate into violence. The tragic death of Whitney Hustler ultimately highlights the critical importance of recognizing warning signs and taking action before it is too late, ensuring that no other family endures a similar loss. Discovery and arrest. Whitney Hustler's sudden disappearance prompted immediate concern from her friends and family, leading to a swift search effort in Street Paris, Ohio. As investigators delved into the case, they quickly turned their focus to the Ryder family, particularly Rodney and Valerie Ryder. Under scrutiny, the couple's stories began to unravel, revealing inconsistencies that raised red flags. Initially, they concocted a fabricated tale about their activities on the morning of September 30, claiming they had been busy cleaning the house and searching for a hunting spot. However, as the investigation progressed, the discrepancies in their accounts became too glaring to ignore. Forensic evidence soon emerged, including DNA found on a green glove inside the vehicle used to transport Whitney's body. This compelling evidence pointed directly to Valerie's involvement in the crime. It wasn't long before the investigation culminated in the grim discovery of Whitney's remains at Kaiser Lake, solidifying the suspicions of foul play that had plagued the case from the start. The breakthrough came when Rodney confessed to witnessing Valerie's fatal actions. His admission became a critical turning point in the investigation. Confronted with irrefutable evidence and the weight of his husband's confession, Valerie was compelled to reveal her own involvement in Whitney's death. In a chilling account, she cited a moment of rage as her motive, triggered by Whitney's perceived threat to sever the Ryder family's access to Arn, Whitney's daughter. This motive underscored the toxic dynamics that had festered within the Ryder household, highlighting how control and obsession can spiral into acts of unimaginable violence. The arrest of Valerie Ryder marked a significant moment in the pursuit of justice for Whitney Hustler. It exposed the depths of familial betrayal and the devastating consequences of unchecked control and obsession. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the community was left to grapple with the horror of what had transpired behind closed doors, prompting discussions about the need for greater awareness and intervention in domestic disputes. In the courtroom, the prosecution presented a case built on damning evidence and emotional testimonies from Whitney's family. They painted a portrait of a young woman caught in a relentless struggle against the controlling forces of the Ryder family, emphasizing the psychological toll of living in an environment rife with manipulation and hostility. The emotional weight of the trial resonated deeply, revealing the profound impact of Whitney's loss on her loved ones. Ultimately, Valerie's actions serve as a harrowing reminder of the potential for violence that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary family relationships. As the trial drew to a close, it became evident that Whitney's story would not simply fade into the background. Her tragic fate illuminated the urgent need for discussions about domestic violence, control, and the importance of listening to the voices of those who may be suffering in silence. The consequences of Whitney's death extended far beyond her immediate family. Her daughter, Arn, would grow up in the shadow of this tragedy, grappling with the loss of her mother and the implications of a life intertwined with a legacy of violence. The community, too, was left to reflect on the systemic issues that had allowed such a horrific event to occur, prompting a call to action for better support systems for families caught in similar cycles of control and obsession. Whitney Hustler's life and untimely death became a rallying point for change, ensuring that her story would be remembered as a catalyst for awareness and prevention in the face of domestic violence. Legal proceedings. The ensuing legal proceedings surrounding the tragic death of Whitney Hustler laid bare the horrific events that culminated in her untimely demise. The courtroom drama was filled with emotional testimony and compelling evidence, revealing the dark realities of familial control and violence. Rodney Ryder Sr., who had played a significant role in the events leading up to Whitney's death, pleaded guilty to charges of obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. His admission of guilt came as he acknowledged his involvement in assisting Valerie with the disposal of Whitney's body. The gravity of his actions was reflected in the sentence he received, 36 months in prison. While Rodney's sentence provided a modicum of accountability, it paled in comparison to the severity of Valerie's actions, which had ultimately led to Whitney's tragic fate. In stark contrast to Rodney's plea deal, Valerie Ryder faced a much harsher trial, charged with aggravated murder, evidence tampering, and gross abuse of a corpse. The prosecution painted a chilling picture of a woman driven by rage and an obsessive desire for control, using the courtroom as a stage to reveal the horrific details of that fateful morning. The evidence presented included forensic data, such as DNA recovered from a green glove found in the vehicle used to transport Whitney's body, which solidified Valerie's culpability beyond any reasonable doubt. This piece of evidence became a focal point of the trial, highlighting not just Valerie's direct involvement in the crime, but also the calculated nature of her actions. Testimony from Whitney's family members added a deeply emotional layer to the proceedings. Her mother and sister shared heart-wrenching accounts of Whitney's life, illustrating the challenges she faced as a young mother battling postpartum depression while navigating a contentious custody struggle with her ex-boyfriend, Randy Ryder. The family's testimonies painted a vivid picture of Whitney's determination to secure a stable future for her daughter Arn, often in the face of overwhelming obstacles posed by the Ryder family. They described Valerie's relentless desire to exert control over Arn's custody, a motive that tragically culminated in Whitney's senseless death. Valerie's actions were not merely the result of a momentary lapse in judgment, they were indicative of a deeper, more disturbing pattern of behavior. The testimonies revealed a history of manipulation and hostility within the Ryder household, underscoring the toxic dynamics that had contributed to the volatile environment Whitney endured. The emotional impact of these revelations resonated throughout the courtroom, leaving many in attendance grappling with the stark reality of how familial relationships can devolve into something so destructive. As the trial progressed, the prosecution's narrative emphasized not only the brutality of Valerie's actions, but also the profound implications of Whitney's death on her family. The loss of a mother, sister, and daughter left an indelible mark on her loved ones, who now faced the daunting task of moving forward without her. Whitney's sister, Chelsea Hustler, who would later gain custody of Arn, spoke poignantly about the urgency of providing a stable and loving environment for her niece, a child who had been thrust into a world marked by tragedy and loss. Ultimately, the jury's deliberation culminated in a verdict that sought to deliver justice for Whitney. In February 2021, Valerie Ryder was found guilty on charges of aggravated murder, evidence tampering, and gross abuse of a corpse. The presiding judge sentenced her to 21 years in prison, with a possibility of parole in 2041. While the sentencing brought a measure of closure and justice to Whitney's grieving family, it could never alleviate the profound anguish and irreparable loss they endured. Whitney's young daughter Arn faced the grim reality of growing up orphaned by her mother's tragic death and the imprisonment of both her grandparents. The custody of Arn was awarded to Chelsea, ensuring that the child would be raised in a nurturing environment, shielded from the turbulent dynamics that had led to her mother's demise. Chelsea's commitment to providing a stable upbringing for Arn became a beacon of hope amid the darkness of their shared loss. The aftermath of Whitney's death not only highlighted the tragic consequences of familial disputes, but also served as a catalyst for broader conversations about domestic violence, mental health, and the complexities of motherhood. Whitney Hustler's life and the circumstances surrounding her death became a poignant reminder of the urgent need for awareness and intervention in situations where control and obsession threaten the safety and well-being of individuals. The community, left to grapple with the horror of what had transpired, was prompted to reflect on the systemic issues that allowed such violence to occur, spurring discussions on how to better support families caught in similar cycles of turmoil. Whitney's legacy, though marred by tragedy, ultimately became a call to action for those advocating for change. Her story serves as a somber reminder of the importance of addressing the underlying issues that contribute to domestic violence, the necessity of providing support for mental health challenges, and the critical need for intervention in potentially harmful familial situations. As Whitney's family continues to heal, they strive to honor her memory by raising awareness and fostering a community that prioritizes safety, compassion, and understanding in the face of adversity. Sentencing and aftermath. In February 2021, Valerie Ryder was found guilty of aggravated murder, evidence tampering, and gross abuse of a corpse. The presiding judge sentenced her to 21 years in prison, with the possibility of parole in 2041. While this sentencing brought a measure of closure and justice to Whitney Hustler's grieving family, it could never alleviate the profound pain and irreparable loss they endured following the tragic circumstances of Whitney's death. For Whitney's young daughter, Arn, the reality of growing up without her mother loomed large. Orphaned by the tragic events that unfolded, Arn faced a future marked by grief and uncertainty, compounded by the imprisonment of her grandparents. In the aftermath of the court's decision, custody of Arn was awarded to Chelsea Hustler, Whitney's sister. Chelsea embraced the weighty responsibility of raising Arn, aiming to provide her with a sense of stability and security amidst the chaos of their shared trauma. Through her dedication, Chelsea sought to create a nurturing environment that honored Whitney's memory while helping Arn navigate the complexities of loss. The transition was not easy, but Chelsea's unwavering commitment to her niece offered a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming sorrow. Together, they began the difficult journey of healing, supported by family and friends who rallied around them in their time of need. Reflections on the case. The murder of Whitney Hustler by Valerie Ryder serves as a haunting reminder of the potential for violence within familial dynamics, particularly amid custody disputes involving vulnerable children. This case reveals the darker aspects of familial affection, tainted by possessiveness and control, ultimately resulting in tragic consequences. Whitney's untimely death underscores how simmering tensions can erupt into unimaginable acts of violence, leaving an indelible impact on all those affected. Moreover, this case highlights the critical need for early intervention and support mechanisms for individuals grappling with mental health challenges, such as postpartum depression. Whitney's struggle with depression, combined with her tumultuous relationship with the Ryder family, were pivotal factors that exacerbated escalating tensions and ultimately led to her tragic demise. As society continues to grapple with issues surrounding mental health, custody disputes, and domestic violence, the story of Whitney Hustler serves as a tragic catalyst for discussions about the need for increased awareness, prevention efforts, and resources for those in vulnerable situations. It emphasizes the importance of fostering healthier family dynamics, providing support systems, and prioritizing mental health care to prevent future tragedies and protect the most vulnerable among us. In summary, the murder of Whitney Hustler at the hands of Valerie Ryder epitomizes the chilling reality of how familial conflicts can escalate into acts of extreme violence. This case serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility inherent in family bonds and the devastating repercussions when disputes remain unresolved. Whitney's tragic death stands as a solemn call for empathy, understanding, and proactive intervention in familial dynamics to prevent such heartbreaking outcomes in the future. As the legal proceedings concluded, Whitney's loved ones were left grappling with the profound void her untimely death created. Her memory endures as a symbol of resilience in the face of tragedy, prompting a fervent call for justice and reform in addressing domestic disputes that can tragically escalate to irreparable loss. The case of Whitney Hustler serves not only as a sobering reminder of the violence that can arise from family disputes, but also as a clarification call for societal change to ensure that such tragedies are prevented in the future.